The Eos Dawn was a great ship of steel and glass, moving slowly across the endless black sea of space. Its engines hummed like a giant's heartbeat, steady and calm, carrying hundreds of lives through the void. Inside its shining corridors, lights glowed soft and white, guiding crew members of many species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had wings, and among them, humans walked side by side, trying to prove they were not the weakest race in the stars. Daniel was one of them. He was not a soldier. He was not a captain. He was only an engineer, a man who fixed what was broken. His hands were calloused from years of work, but his heart was gentle. He had never sought glory, only peace. While others argued about politics, Daniel bent over machines, making sure air flowed, lights shone, and engines never failed. Most days were quiet for him. But this day would change everything. The hangar was filled with noise, sparks flying, welders burning, engines whining. Daniel knelt by a plasma vent, tightening bolts with a wrench, humming a soft tune to himself. His brown hair stuck to his forehead with sweat, and his jumpsuit carried the smell of oil and smoke. To him this was normal, but someone was watching. Her name was Lyra. She was a Threxan, one of the scaled people. Her skin shimmered like polished bronze under the hangar lights, and her golden eyes glowed with the sharpness of a hunter. Threxans were tall, strong, proud. They were known for their warlike nature, their endurance in battle, their stubborn pride and strength. To them, humans were strange creatures, too soft, too fragile, too emotional, and yet Lyra kept finding her eyes drawn to this quiet human who never raised his voice, never sought a fight, and yet worked longer hours than any soldier. She walked closer, her claws clicking softly against the metal floor. "Human," she said, her voice carrying the hiss of her people's tongue. Daniel looked up, blinking. "Oh, hi there, Lyra. Need something?" She tilted her head, studying him. "I have a question. A strange one." He chuckled, wiping grease from his hands. "Strange questions I can handle." "Go ahead." Her eyes narrowed with curiosity. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so no one else could hear. "Is it true that your kind can mate multiple times, in one night, without your tool breaking?" The wrench nearly slipped from Daniel's hand. He froze, staring at her as his face turned crimson. "Excuse me? What did you just say?" Lyra did not blink. She looked perfectly serious. "Among the Threxan, our males can only mate once in many weeks. Their tool, after release, is damaged. It must rest and heal before it is whole again. To force it again too soon would cause breaking. It is our way. It is biology, but I heard whispers that humans are different, that your tool does not break." Daniel coughed, his throat suddenly dry. Around them, workers were still busy, no one paying attention, but to him it felt as though the entire hangar had gone silent. He rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "Well, that's kind of a personal topic, don't you think?" Lyra stepped closer, her eyes shining brighter. "So it is true? Tell me, human, do you not fear breaking?" Daniel laughed nervously, trying to keep his voice low. "Look, I'm not sure how much detail I should be giving here, but yes, humans can. Recover quickly. We don't exactly break like that." Her jaw dropped. Her scales flared brighter, shimmering like sunlight on water. "That cannot be. That is impossible. No flesh survives such stress. You must be lying." Daniel held up his hand, still embarrassed but trying to explain. "It's not a lie. It's just human biology. We don't, snap like your people. We can keep going as long as we have energy." Lyra stared at him in stunned silence. Her mind raced. For her whole life, she believed that her people's way was universal, that the limit was law. One act, then rest, then weakness. That was the rhythm of nature. But here was a human, saying his kind did not obey this rule. Her heart thudded in her chest. "But how? How can you endure without damage? How can soft flesh resist collapse?" Daniel shrugged awkwardly. "It's not just the body. It's willpower, too. Humans push themselves past limits all the time. Not only here." He tapped his chest. "Here, too. Sometimes our heart, our spirit, demands more. And when that happens, the body follows." She blinked, her golden eyes wide. "Your spirit controls your flesh." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's one way of saying it." For a moment, Lyra said nothing. Her people measured strength in how long one could fight before falling. But humans measured it in something different. She could not name it yet, but she could feel it, the weight of it in this human's quiet words. Her scales softened to a dim bronze glow. She whispered almost to herself, Impossible. But deep inside, she was no longer sure. The hangar returned to its noisy rhythm, machines buzzing, sparks flying, footsteps echoing, but for Daniel and Lyra, the world had narrowed to only the space between them. Her golden eyes stared at him with burning intensity, as if she had just discovered a hidden star. "You cannot be serious," Lyra whispered. "You cannot truly. Continue again and again. Your body would collapse. Your tool would snap. That is the way of all living things." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. He wanted to laugh, but her seriousness held him. She was not mocking him. She was searching for truth, and her heart would not accept lies. "I told you," he said carefully, "humans are different. We recover fast. We don't break like that." Her scales flared brighter, shimmering bronze and gold. On her people's world, that glow meant disbelief mixed with fear. "But why?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why would your species have such power? What use is it? What battle does it win?" Daniel leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. "It's not about winning battles, Lyra. It's about connection. It's about closeness. Humans don't only measure strength by war or survival. We measure it by how deeply we can stay with someone, how far we can go for them." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Closeness. You speak as though it is more than flesh, as though it is spirit." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. To us, it's not just an act. It's a bond. That's why we endure even when our bodies are tired, because the heart doesn't stop wanting." Her eyes widened. She had never thought of it that way. To her people, mating was duty, brief, harsh, biological. Afterward, weakness came, then long silence. There was no fire in it, no endless desire, just survival. But this human was saying his kind could burn again and again, not for survival, but for something more. Her voice shook as she asked, "Do all humans have this power? Or only some?" Daniel chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not power, Lyra. It's just how we are made. Most humans can do it. Some more, some less. But the idea of breaking? That doesn't really happen." Lyra pressed her clawed hands together, her golden gaze burning with wonder and disbelief. "Your words, they go against everything I have known. In my world, the strongest males are those who last longer before the breaking. The weak are mocked, cast aside. But if your kind never breaks..." She trailed off, unable to finish. Daniel looked at her gently. He could see the storm inside her. She wasn't only curious, she was shaken. Her whole world, her whole culture had told her one truth. Flesh has limits, and those limits must be obeyed. Yet this quiet human was standing before her, calmly saying limits could be bent, even broken. "Lyra," he said softly, "strength isn't only in what you can do once, it's in what you can do again. And again, and again. That's what makes us human." For the first time, she stepped back, her scales dimming as if a shadow had passed over her. She felt small in that moment, as though her people's pride was nothing before this impossible truth. She whispered, "Then humans are stronger than we believed?" Daniel shook his head quickly. "No, not stronger. Just different. We all have limits. Yours are here." He tapped his arm. "Ours are here." He tapped his chest. "The difference is where we fight them." His words sank into her heart like stones into deep water. She had always thought strength was measured in claws and bones, in the breaking point of flesh. But here was a man saying strength could live in the spirit, in the will to continue. Her golden eyes softened, but they still glimmered with disbelief. "If what you say is true, then humans are not weak at all. They are dangerous." Daniel gave a small smile. "Not dangerous, just stubborn." The word made her pause. Stubborn. She had seen humans refuse to stop working even when their bodies trembled. She had seen them carry burdens twice their size, not because they had the strength, but because they refused to let go. Now she understood it wasn't madness. It was their way. Still, she could not fully believe. Her mind fought the idea, but her heart whispered that the human was not lying. She leaned closer again, her voice low and urgent. "Show me, prove it. I must see with my own eyes. I must know this is true." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "Prove it? Lyra, this isn't something I can just demonstrate in the middle of the hangar." But her eyes blazed with hunger for truth, not lust. "Then tell me more," she begged. "Tell me how your kind survives without breaking. Tell me how you endure." Daniel sighed, realizing he could not escape. He wiped his greasy hands with a cloth, thinking carefully. "It's not magic, Lyra, it's endurance. Our bodies heal fast. Blood rushes back. Muscles recover. But more important, it's desire. If the heart still burns, the body follows. That's why even when tired, humans rise again. Her claws trembled slightly as she whispered, "Desire stronger than flesh?" He nodded. "Yes, that's the human way." Silence hung between them. Around them, workers shouted, machines roared, sparks flew. But in that small space between one human and one alien, the universe had shifted. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. Not pride, not anger, but awe. She stared at Daniel as though seeing a new kind of being, one not bound by the laws she thought unbreakable. Finally, she whispered the only word her lips could form, "Impossible." And yet a strange fire flickered in her golden eyes, something between fear and wonder. The ship moved through the endless dark, its engines humming like a lullaby. Life aboard Eos Dawn was never still. Soldiers trained in the gyms, pilots studied star maps, engineers worked in the belly of the ship to keep her alive. Among them, Daniel continued his quiet life. He woke early, drank strong coffee, and spent his long hours with machines. He fixed broken wires, sealed leaking pipes, and made sure no fire would ever spread in the oxygen vents. It was simple work, but he took pride in it. To him, every bolt tightened meant another day of safety for the crew. But ever since their strange conversation in the hangar, Daniel was no longer alone. Lyra had become his shadow. At first, she watched from a distance. When he walked through the corridor, she followed silently, her claws clicking softly on the floor. When he bent over engines, she stood behind him, golden eyes unblinking, watching his every move. When he ate in the mess hall, she sat across from him, never breaking her stare. Finally, Daniel sighed one morning as he tightened a cooling valve. "Lyra, you've been following me for 3 days. What's going on?" She stepped closer, scales shimmering faint bronze. "I want answers. I cannot stop thinking about what you told me. It does not leave my mind." Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. "Answers about that?" "Yes," she said firmly. "About your tool. About how you do not break. About how you endure." Daniel coughed, embarrassed, glancing at the other engineers nearby. He lowered his voice. "Lyra, we can't just talk about that everywhere," but she didn't care. Her kind did not know shame in such things. "Tell me, human, do all of your people carry this strength? Even the weak ones?" Daniel sighed. "It's not really about strength the way you think. It's more about recovery. Some faster, some slower. But yes, most humans can continue more than once." Her eyes glowed brighter. "Even your weak? Even your elders?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, it may change with age, but it never completely stops." Lyra stared at him as though he had said the stars themselves could be touched by hand. "Among my people," she whispered, "the strongest males are worshipped because they last longer before breaking. The weak are mocked and cast away. But if humans never break, then every human is stronger than even our best." Daniel set his wrench down and looked at her seriously. "Lyra, you're thinking of it the wrong way. It's not about proving yourself to others. It's about sharing something real. It's not a contest." Her head tilted, confused. "Not a contest? Then what is it?" Daniel hesitated, trying to find words simple enough for her. "It's a bond. A way to feel close. It's about trust, care, and love. That's why humans endure. It's not just physical, it's emotional too." Lyra blinked. "Love. I have heard this word, but I do not know its true shape." Daniel gave a small smile. "Love is when you place someone else's heart above your own. It's when their happiness matters more than your comfort. When you endure not for yourself, but for them." Her golden eyes softened, and for the first time she looked uncertain. "My people do not know this. We endure only for survival. We fight only for pride. We mate only for children. We do not care in the way you speak of." Daniel's voice grew gentle. "Maybe that's why you thought we were weak. Because we don't fight the way you do. But our strength isn't only in claws or muscle. It's in how deeply we can hold on to each other." The words pierced her heart like arrows of light. She stared at him, silent, her scales flickering between gold and bronze as emotions warred inside her. She had always been taught that weakness was softness, that caring was foolishness. Yet this man spoke of caring as strength, of endurance as love. From that day, her curiosity became relentless. She followed him into the engine rooms. "Tell me more," she demanded. How can you continue after your flesh is tired? Do you not feel pain? Daniel tightened a bolt and smiled faintly. Pain is real, yes, but sometimes humans push past it. Our desire can be stronger than the pain, she frowned. Desire stronger than pain. That is not possible, he glanced at her. And yet you're standing here asking. Maybe part of you already knows it's true. Her claws curled against her palms as if gripping something invisible. She wanted to deny it, but the warmth in his voice pulled her toward belief. At night, she found him in the mess hall. When you say it is not a contest, then why do you endure again and again? If not to win, then for what? Daniel stirred his food slowly. For closeness. For connection. Every time it deepens the bond. Every time it says, I am still here. I will not leave. That's what makes it powerful. Her breath caught in her throat. In her world, no one ever said such words. Mating was brief, cold, and forgotten after. But this human was telling her it could be endless, each time stronger than before. And the thought lit a strange fire inside her chest. The next morning, she followed him to the maintenance deck. The low hum of machinery surrounded them. She stopped him before he climbed the ladder. Daniel, tell me truly, do you never fear breaking? Do you never wonder if the body will fail? Daniel paused, one hand on the metal rung. He turned to face her, his eyes calm. We all fear breaking, Lyra, but that's what makes endurance beautiful. It's not that we never break. It's that we try again even after we do. Humans are stubborn. We heal, we rise again. That's our way. Her golden eyes widened, trembling with new understanding. For her people, breaking was the end. For humans, breaking was just the beginning of trying again. She whispered, almost in awe. You are. Impossible, Daniel smiled. Maybe, but impossible things are what make us human. And for the first time, Lyra's heart began to believe. The corridors of Eos Dawn were quiet that evening, lit only by the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, but inside a different kind of tension crackled between two beings, a human and an alien. Lyra had spent days following Daniel, asking questions, observing him. She had listened to his explanations, watched him work tirelessly, and heard the way he spoke of endurance and human limits. Each word had pulled her deeper into disbelief and wonder. Finally, she stopped him in the ship's recreation hall, where the soft hum of life seemed almost muted. Daniel, she said, her voice low but firm, I have heard enough words. I have seen enough movement. But words are easy. Show me, prove it. I must see that what you claim is true. Daniel froze. He was not used to being challenged like this. He had solved mechanical failures, survived hostile attacks, and repaired life-threatening malfunctions, but this was different. He blinked, trying to measure her seriousness. You want me to prove it? He asked cautiously. Lyra nodded, her golden eyes bright, her scales faintly shimmering with determination. Yes, prove that humans do not break. Prove that your flesh and will endure beyond limits. I must see it with my own eyes, not with words, not with imagination. Show me. Daniel exhaled slowly. He had expected curiosity, maybe even some questions, but never this. It was as though she wanted him to display something deeply personal, something intimate, and he knew she wasn't joking. Her tone carried no malice, only urgent need to know the truth. This isn't a contest, Lyra, he said carefully, his voice steady but calm. It's not about showing power. You think this is about strength, but it's about connection, trust, and patience. If I do this for you, you must understand it's not just physical. It's emotional. It is more than you might be ready for. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her curiosity sharper than ever. I am ready. I must be ready. My people have limits. I know them. But your species, it may be something else entirely. I will see it for myself. Daniel looked at her, and despite the situation, he felt a strange calm. Perhaps this was not just a challenge, it was an invitation to truly share what it meant to be human. Very well, he said softly. But you must promise me you will watch carefully and that you will not misunderstand. Lyra inclined her head. I will not. The hall was empty. The hum of the ship was the only background sound. Daniel motioned for her to sit on a padded bench nearby. Endurance isn't shown by rushing, he explained. It is shown by patience, by persistence, by gentle care and attention. You may think humans are fragile, but our power lies in how we treat each other and ourselves. Her golden eyes were unblinking. Then begin. Daniel approached slowly, careful, respectful. The first step is to understand the connection. It is not a battle. It is not an exercise in dominance. It is an act of care. He reached out, taking her hand gently. She flinched at first, unused to such human softness, but did not pull away. Daniel's voice remained calm, steady. We endure because we want to stay close. We endure because we value the bond. Each time we return, it is not to prove ourselves, it is to honor each other. That is our strength. Lyra's claws curled around his hand, unsure whether to fear or trust. Her mind raced. This was not what she had imagined. She expected raw displays of power, of unrelenting flesh. Instead, Daniel's presence was tender, controlled, full of patience. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, she could not tell. The act itself was slower, methodical. Daniel did not rush. Each motion, each touch, each word whispered into her ear was meant to show her something beyond her understanding. That endurance was not merely mechanical. It was spiritual. See? Daniel murmured softly. This is how we endure, again and again, not for conquest, not for dominance, but for connection. Our bodies may tire, our muscles may ache, but our will, our desire to be close, does not fade. Lyra trembled. She had never expected this. Her people measured endurance by strength alone. They had never considered that desire, patience, and love could give such power. She whispered, almost in disbelief, impossible, yet real. Daniel gave a small smile, brushing a strand of her shimmering hair aside. It is real because it is chosen. Humans choose to endure for those they care for, and that choice makes the body follow the mind, the heart, and the spirit. Her golden eyes glistened. She had watched, she had felt, and now she understood. It was not only about not breaking, it was about wanting to continue beyond what the body demanded. The human mind, the human heart, were tools more powerful than any bone, any scale, any weapon. When the moment ended, Lyra collapsed into a chair, trembling, her body exhausted but her mind alive with new understanding. I do not know what to say, she admitted, voice soft, awed. I thought it would be impossible. I thought I would witness weakness, but you did not break, you endured. Daniel sat beside her, gently placing a hand on hers. You see now, don't you? Endurance is not only physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual, and that is what humans do best. We endure not because we have to, but because we choose to. She looked up at him, her golden eyes shining brighter than ever. For the first time she truly saw him, not just as a human, but as something beyond her imagination. His patience, his care, his quiet strength. It was impossible by her standards, and yet undeniable. I understand, she whispered. Your species is unlike any other, not because of your flesh, but because of your heart, because of your will. You endure endlessly. Daniel smiled softly. Yes, and now you know. For Lyra, the universe had shifted. What she once thought of as impossible was no longer fantasy, it was reality. Humans could endure. Humans could continue again and again. Humans were not limited by the fragile constraints of flesh alone. Humans could be infinite. And in that hall, filled with only the soft hum of the ship, an unspoken bond formed. A connection forged not by brute strength, but by understanding, patience, and trust. She did not speak for a long moment. She only stared at him, her golden eyes flickering with awe, disbelief, and a growing admiration. Finally, she whispered again, almost as if confessing a secret. I must learn more. I must understand everything about this human endurance. Daniel nodded, smiling faintly. And I will show you, Lyra. You only need to be willing to see it, not just with your eyes, but with your heart. Her heart raced. She had thought humans fragile. She had thought them weak. But now, in the soft glow of the ship's lights, she realized that the human way of enduring, of choosing to continue, was something no Threxan tool, no Threxan biology, no Threxan law could ever match. Humans did not break. Humans endured. Humans were impossible. The night aboard the Eos Dawn was quiet, almost reverent. The hum of the engines seemed softer, as if the ship itself were listening. Daniel moved carefully through the corridors, aware of Lyra following close behind. For days now she had watched him, questioned him, challenged him, but tonight would be different. Tonight she would understand more than just words. They reached the recreation chamber, a space lined with soft mats and cushions. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the void, cold and silent. Inside, the atmosphere was intimate, heavy with anticipation. Lyra stopped at the entrance, golden eyes flickering nervously. She had no idea what to expect. She only knew that she wanted to see the impossible made real. Daniel turned to her, his expression calm but serious. "Are you ready, Lyra? This isn't a demonstration of strength. It's a lesson in connection. You must understand that endurance is not only in the body, it is in the mind, the heart, and the spirit." Lyra nodded, her scales shimmering softly. "I am ready," she whispered, though her voice trembled slightly. She could feel her pulse quicken, not from fear but from curiosity and anticipation. Daniel approached her slowly. Every movement was gentle, deliberate. He extended his hand, and after a moment of hesitation, she placed hers in his. The touch was warm, grounding, a silent promise that nothing would be forced. "This is the beginning," Daniel said softly. "Endurance is not about power. It's about care. Every moment we share, every touch, every breath is a choice. We continue not because we must, but because we want to remain connected." Her golden eyes searched his face, trying to understand. She had imagined human endurance as something harsh, almost brutal, but Daniel's approach was the opposite. Tender, patient, deliberate. Each step he took was meant to show her that strength was more than flesh. It was will, heart, and spirit combined. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Lyra lost all sense of time. Daniel guided her gently, demonstrating human endurance not as a physical act of stamina alone, but as a dance of trust and connection. Every pause, every sigh, every soft word carried meaning. Lyra felt herself drawn deeper, not just physically but emotionally, as if each moment were a revelation. "You see," Daniel whispered, brushing a strand of shimmering hair from her face, "it is not the body that defines endurance. It is the choice to continue, the willingness to return, the desire to connect. That is what humans do. That is why we do not break. Our will leads our flesh." Lyra trembled, overwhelmed by the realization. Her people measured strength by power, by survival, by the breaking point of flesh. But here was a human, demonstrating something beyond all biological limits. His endurance was not raw, it was refined, patient, and filled with care. "Impossible," she murmured again, though this time it was awe, not disbelief. "And yet, it is real," Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, it is real. You must see it, feel it, and understand it. Human endurance is not a test of cruelty. It is a gift of patience, a choice to share strength with another, over and over again." For the first time, Lyra felt the depth of what he was saying. The act itself was not about domination or conquest. It was about presence, attention, and commitment. Each moment they spent together was a testament to human resilience, not just of the body but of the heart. Her golden eyes glistened as she whispered, I never knew this could exist. Among my people, the strongest are worshipped, but they cannot endure like this. Not in spirit, not in heart, you are beyond our measure." Daniel shook his head softly. "No, Lyra, we are not beyond anyone. We are simply human. We endure because we care. We endure because we choose to. That choice gives strength to the body and spirit alike. That is the power you see." She leaned into him, her scales brushing softly against his skin. There was no fear now, only trust. She understood that human endurance was not a force of pain, but a force of love, connection, and intention. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Each moment revealed more, not of the act itself, but of what it represented. Daniel did not tire. He returned again and again, always gentle, always patient, always attentive, and each return deepened the bond between them, proving beyond doubt that human endurance was limitless when paired with heart and spirit. By the time it ended, Lyra was trembling, not from exhaustion alone, but from the overwhelming realization of what she had witnessed. Her golden eyes were wet with tears, awe and understanding shining brighter than ever. I cannot believe it," she whispered, her voice almost broken by emotion. "I thought I would see strength measured only in flesh, in tools, in the breaking of limits. But you endured, not because you had to, but because you chose to. You are impossible." Daniel reached out, brushing her cheek softly. "You see now, Lyra, that endurance is not only about surviving. It is about choosing to remain, choosing to care, choosing to connect. That is the human way. That is why we endure. That is why we are unbreakable." She leaned into his touch, her body exhausted but her spirit alight. She had believed humans were fragile. She had believed they were limited. But now she understood. Endurance was not measured in the breaking of tools, in the exhaustion of flesh, or in the strict limits of biology. It was measured in will, in heart, and in the choice to care beyond the limits of the body. For the first time, Lyra truly saw Daniel, not just as a man, not just as a human, but as a being capable of something her people had never imagined. Patience, connection, love, endurance, these were tools stronger than claws, scales, or weapons. I see now, she whispered, her golden eyes glowing softly. Your species is not fragile. Your flesh is not weak. Your heart is unbreakable. Daniel smiled, leaning back slightly. Yes, Lyra, that is what makes us human. We endure not because we must, but because we choose to. And the more we choose, the stronger we become, body, mind, and heart together. And in that quiet chamber, with stars shining coldly outside the ship, Lyra understood. Humans were impossible. Humans were infinite. Humans were unbreakable, not because their tools never failed, but because their hearts, their minds, and their spirits refused to stop. She closed her eyes, letting the revelation sink into her bones. For the first time she felt awe, not fear, not skepticism, but pure awe. And in that awe, a quiet trust bloomed between them, a bond forged not by force or conquest, but by understanding, patience, and the impossible endurance of the human heart. The ship was quiet that night, almost sacred in its stillness. The usual hum of machinery was soft, like a distant heartbeat echoing gently through the halls. Lyra walked slowly beside Daniel, her mind still spinning from what she had witnessed. Her scales glimmered faintly under the soft lights, reflecting gold and bronze, but they felt dull compared to the fire in her heart. She had thought she understood strength. She had grown up learning that it was measured by endurance, by the limits of flesh, by the breaking point of tools. Her people believed that weakness was obvious and shameful, that only the strong survived in the stars. But now she felt the limits of her understanding crumbling. Daniel walked beside her, quiet, careful not to overwhelm her thoughts. He knew what she had seen, and he knew it was more than a lesson in human endurance. It was a revelation. You are quiet, he said softly, breaking the silence. Thinking? Lyra's golden eyes met his, filled with awe and confusion. I am thinking, she admitted. I cannot believe it. I thought humans were fragile, limited. I thought your flesh would fail, your tool would break. And yet, Daniel smiled gently, and yet it did not. That is the difference, Lyra. Humans endure because we choose to, not because we must. Our limits are set not only by our bodies, but by our hearts and minds. She shook her head slowly. No, you do not understand. It is beyond belief. Your body, your mind, your spirit, they do not falter. Not once, not twice, again and again, endlessly. I have watched. I have felt it, and She stopped, swallowing hard. I cannot comprehend it fully. It is impossible. Daniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Sometimes the impossible is only impossible until you experience it. Humans do not break the way you think. We heal. We rise. We endure. Because we want to remain connected. Because we care. Her golden eyes softened, glimmering with something she had never felt before. Understanding, awe, and respect. You speak of care, of trust, of connection. These are your true tools, not claws, not strength, not tools of the flesh, but the heart, and that is why you endure. Daniel nodded. Yes, and now you know. That is the power of humanity. She walked beside him in silence for a long moment, letting the words sink into her soul. Every step felt heavier with realization, yet lighter with awe. She had been raised to believe strength was physical. Now she understood that true strength was far more subtle, far more profound. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. I have lived my entire life believing that endurance is measured by survival, by tools, by flesh. I have believed that weakness is obvious and inevitable. But what I have seen, what I have felt, it is nothing like that. Humans endure, endlessly. Not for survival, not for pride, but for connection, for love, for care. Daniel smiled softly, proud of her understanding. You see now, that is why humans are different. That is why we are unbreakable in ways your people cannot even imagine. Lyra's golden eyes filled with tears she did not bother to hide. She pressed a clawed hand to her chest, feeling her own heart pounding in recognition of a truth she could not deny. I see it now. I have seen it. I have felt it. Humans are not fragile. Humans are infinite. Daniel's hand brushed hers gently. Yes, Lyra, that is what makes us human. We endure because we choose to, because we care, because we love. That is the true measure of strength. That is why we never truly break. She leaned closer, her scales brushing against his arm. I understand. I understand why your kind survives, why your kind rises, why your kind endures. It is not only flesh, not only tools, not only biology. It is the heart, the spirit, the will, and that is something my people have never known. Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of her realization. It is something rare in the galaxy, Lyra. Not every species values endurance in this way. But humans do. That is why we endure. That is why we are impossible. Her golden eyes glimmered with awe. She had watched countless beings in her life, measured their strength, judged their limits. But no species had ever shown her what humans could do. And now she realized it. It was not only physical. It was spiritual, emotional, infinite. I cannot describe how it feels, she whispered. To see, to feel, to understand. Your kind is beyond what I thought possible. I am in awe. Daniel's smile was gentle, patient. You don't have to describe it. You only have to feel it. Let it settle inside you. Remember this, Lyra. Humans endure because we choose to. We rise because we care. That choice is what makes us unbreakable. Her chest rose and fell as she let the truth sink in. Every word, every touch, every moment they had shared became a revelation. Her people had taught her to measure strength with tools, with survival, with fleeting acts of endurance. But now she understood that endurance was deeper, richer, far beyond anything she had imagined. You are not like any being I have ever known, she said softly. You are impossible, and yet real, and that is what makes your kind. Human. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, giving it a gentle squeeze. Yes, Lyra. Human. And now you know our truth. She closed her eyes, letting herself absorb the weight of what she had learned. For the first time, she felt true admiration. Not fear, not skepticism, but awe and respect. Humans were impossible, infinite, unbreakable, not because of what their flesh could endure, but because of what their hearts, minds, and spirits refused to surrender. In that moment, Lyra understood everything. Humans could endure again and again, not for duty, not for pride, not for survival, but because they chose connection, because they chose care, because they chose love. And in that realization, she found herself transformed. She no longer saw humans as fragile. She saw them as something extraordinary, something her people had never imagined. Her golden eyes glistened as she whispered, I have learned what it means to endure truly. Humans are infinite. Humans are unbreakable. Daniel nodded quietly, letting her words settle in the stillness of the night. He had shown her what it meant to be human, and she had finally seen it. And deep inside, Lyra knew the truth. Humans were impossible. The first light of the distant sun filtered through the windows of the Eos dawn, painting the corridors with gold and silver. The ship moved steadily through the black void, indifferent to the quiet drama unfolding inside. Lyra walked through the halls, her mind still heavy with the truth she had discovered. She had seen it, felt it, and experienced it firsthand. Humans did not break, not in the ways her people measured, not in ways she had ever imagined. And yet she had witnessed it, lived it, and understood it fully now. Her scales shimmered faintly as she walked, golden eyes thoughtful and distant. She had grown up believing that strength was simple. Endurance was measured by flesh, by tools, by the point of breaking. But humans had shown her a truth that was impossible by every standard she had known. Daniel's words echoed in her mind. Humans endure not because they must, but because they choose to. We rise because we care. That is what makes us unbreakable. She stopped in the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. Each one seemed small and distant, yet together they formed something infinite. In that infinity she saw a reflection of the human spirit, limitless, unyielding, infinite. Her claws clenched softly at her sides. I have been wrong, she whispered almost to herself. I have judged strength too narrowly. I have believed in limits that do not exist for some. I have doubted, but now I see. Humans are impossible. She remembered the hours she had spent with Daniel, the patience, the care, the connection, the way he had returned again and again, not out of pride or challenge, but out of desire to remain close, to show trust, to share strength. That endurance had nothing to do with tools or biology. It had everything to do with heart, spirit, and will. I understand now, she breathed. Not all strength is measured by the body. Some strength is unseen. It is in the choice to endure, to care, to remain, even when it is easier to stop. That is the power of humans. For the first time she felt awe, a quiet, unshakable awe. Her people had never taught her about this. They had measured power by survival, by dominance, by who could last longer before breaking. But humans were beyond that. Humans endured beyond the impossible, not because of biology, but because of choice. She turned away from the stars and thought of Daniel. He had been her guide, her teacher, and now her example. The quiet human engineer had revealed something her people had never imagined, that the body could follow the heart. That will could overcome flesh. That connection was stronger than any weapon. Her claws flexed thoughtfully. I must share this, she said aloud. They must know, my people. They must understand that strength is more than survival, that endurance is not only in flesh, but in heart and mind. She walked to the communications room and activated a secure channel. Her voice, strong but reverent, echoed across the signal. Threxans, listen, I bring a message. I have witnessed something beyond measure. I have seen a species that endures in ways we cannot imagine. I have seen humans, unbreakable, infinite, impossible. Silence answered her at first. Then questions, disbelief, and murmurs rose across the channel. She did not falter. She continued, describing what she had experienced, the patience, the care, the endless endurance. She described how Daniel had shown her that human strength was measured not by the limits of flesh, but by the choice to endure, to remain. And to care, my people, she said softly, almost pleading. Do not measure strength only by what you can break or how long you can fight. True strength lies in will, in heart, in connection. Humans endure not because they must, but because they choose. And that choice is stronger than any tool, any scale, any bone. For hours she spoke, recounting the lessons she had learned, sharing the wonder she had felt. The words traveled through ships and stations, reaching ears that had never heard of such endurance. Some Threxans scoffed, as they always did, at the idea of human fragility. Some listened, incredulous, their pride warring with the undeniable truth. But many, many more began to understand. Her own heart beat faster as she finished. She felt a sense of relief, of reverence, and of purpose. She had seen the impossible, and now she had shared it. Humans had revealed a truth that could not be denied, that they could endure endlessly, not out of necessity, but out of choice, heart, and spirit. After the transmission ended, she returned to Daniel's side. He was quietly repairing a small panel in the engine room, focused and calm. She watched him, feeling a swell of respect and gratitude. Daniel, she said softly, my people have heard. They will never look at humans the same way again. You have changed everything. You have shown me something beyond what I thought possible. And I am grateful. Daniel looked up, smiling gently. I didn't do it to change anyone, Lyra. I did it to show you the truth. You have accepted it, understood it, and that is enough. She nodded, her golden eyes shimmering. It is more than enough. I will carry this with me always. Humans, they endure. They are impossible. And now so will I in my own way. For the first time she felt the full weight of understanding. Humans were not fragile. Humans were infinite. Humans were unbreakable, not because of biology, not because of tools, but because of heart, will, and choice. And as the Eos dawn sailed through the endless dark, Lyra realized something profound. She had glimpsed a new standard of life, a new measure of strength, a truth that would change her forever. Humans endured. Endlessly, humans were impossible. Humans were infinite. And in that revelation, Lyra found not only awe, but inspiration. She would carry it forward. She would tell the story. She would live differently, understanding that strength was not in breaking, but in choosing to continue again and again endlessly, like the human way. And in the quiet corridors of the ship, the human engineer continued his work, unaware of how profoundly he had changed the galaxy, not with weapons, not with might but with the quiet, infinite power of human endurance.